Hi everyone, this is Pradeep from Sydney. Once again, welcoming to another session of GCC. Today we have GCC episode 26. That is correct. In about 7 months, this is the we have already crossed quarter of a century. What a phenomenal journey it has been. It's been great to catch up with alumni and leaders from all over the world and who are IITians. So today I have three absolutely fabulous leaders with us. Although I am a gentleman, I typically start off with ladies. But I am also cognizant there are some infrastructure challenges sometimes in India. And Arjun Malhotra, who's one of our speakers, currently happens to be in India. So, keeping those infrastructure challenges, I will go not by my gentlemanly norms, but I will introduce Arjun Malhotra first. Arjun needs no introduction. He is a global icon. He's been involved in setting up so many different institutions which are very large global entities today that I really don't know where to start and where to stop. But keeping it very brief and simple, all I will say is Arjun did his schooling from St. Columbus. And why I'm mentioning that is because some of the people attending the call told me, that look, great people come from Columbus. And I told him, sorry, they come from DPS because that's where I did my schooling from. But apart from that, he did his graduation from IIT Kharagpur. And therein starts the journey, and we will talk more about it. But he's the co founder and vice chairman of HCL Technologies, which all of you may know is today a group which employs more than 200,000 people, has a market capitalization of more than 50 US dollar billion. But that's just one of the things that he's been involved in. There is Mckay. He's been the founding member of Mckay. He has a very good hand or a big hand in start of NIT. He is on the board of governors of so many different institutions. Plus, 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 plus. With all of this, but first and foremost, I have found Arjun to be an absolutely lovely person. It is not his worldly accomplishments that I invited him today, these which are very, very significant, but because of I've had the opportunity of interacting with over quite a few times in my travels to USA and at Pan IITs. So, with a big ado, please give a big round of applause to Arjun. And let me introduce the two other fabulous ladies over here. And then we'll kickstart with the initial round of discussion with Arjun. First and foremost, and realizing that we have a lady who did her PhD from IIT Delhi. My. I thought that BTech was enough, but this lady had the guts to go ahead and do PhD. This is Arpita Ghosh. And Arpita did her PhD from IIT Delhi, and she is currently a professor with IIM Sirmaur. Sirmaur is a place in Himachal, and she's got a very strong focus also. She's into environmental management, where IIM Sirmaur has a center on environmental management, and we'll talk more about it. Please give a big round of applause to Arpita. After that, I go to the youngest member of the team today, and who else but Aparna Saroagi. I've had the pleasure of knowing Aparna for a few years, and she's really a very dynamic person, despite the quiet looks that she gives. She did her MBA from IIT Delhi in 2006 and is currently the head of credit risk at NatWest Group. And she is quite well known in inclusive circles, being a founder of being a founder of INSquare, being a TEDx speaker, and writing for a lot of dailies and monthlies and whatever else. So please give a big round of applause to Aparna. Aparna, I can't see your face. Have you disappeared or are you still there?
Pradeep ji, very much here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's kickstart the story today with Arjun Malhotra. Arjun, tell me, when you were working with DCM and suddenly thought of starting HCL Technologies, what happened? Why did you start about that? Did you go to some VC to get your funding? Or what exactly happened at that particular point in time?
Sure. But before I get in, I wanted to make one correction. I did spend 4 years at Columbus in Delhi, but I did my last 4 years at the Doon School in Dehradun. So technically, I graduated from the Doon School in
Man,
Dehradun.
I thought only DPS was great. Now you added Doon School also to the list.
Just wanted to make that correction.
That is correct.
Okay.
Actually, in your profile it is actually got Doon School. But one of the attendees, and I don't want to name him because he's a very, very good friend of mine, he said, Columbus. So I said, oh, okay. Okay, back
Yeah.
to you, Arjun.
Yes. So, when we were in DCM, we had done a lot of work. DCM's uh, what we did was we had a strong sales and marketing group, and we had a very strong R&D. And so, calculators are a commodity thing. You can make them in a garage, you can make them in a big company. And when you make them in a big company, you have overheads. And so, competing with people who are assemblers, if I use that term, make them in a garage, don't use plated, gold plated connectors, don't use plated through hole, don't have an ABS cabinet with a mold, but use high impact polystyrene. The prices are very different. So our differentiator was that we would do research. We would add EPROM based functionality onto the calculator so that it did jobs that normal people who just took chips and put it on a calculator couldn't do. So A, we got a premium. B, they were proprietary articles, so we didn't have to go through big tender processes. So that's what we were doing in DCM. We built a programmable calculator, and then microprocessors came out. So we built a advanced programmable calculator with a 4-bit microprocessor and actually used bit slice technology to make a computer. But India was a socialist country in those days. And we had an act called the Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices
Yes.
Act, right? And that basically didn't allow large private companies to get into new areas. So and DCM was the fourth largest company in the country at that time on revenue basis. And so while we did try and tell them that, look, programmable calculators, computers, it's writing a program, it's the same thing. But, if you worked in large companies, you'll realize that their legal department's job is to tell you how you can't do things. And so DCM was advised that they shouldn't get into this because it would impact the bigger part of the company. And remember, in a 250 crore company, this was 1.72 crores, but very profitable. We were making 70 lakhs out of that. So we decided, we thought microprocessors were going to change the world. So 6 of us actually left and decided to get into computers on our own. And other motivation was the fact that IBM and ICL, which were the major computer, and ECIL, were the major computer manufacturers, was selling machines based on old technology. And so we felt that, look, I'll come with the new technology, I'll have better functionality, I don't need all those specialized rooms, et cetera, et cetera. We'd be able to sell computers. So no business plan, no money. 6 of us left. None of us had a business background and decided to get into computers. Uh, you know, we pooled all our
So,
money together.
so
Yeah.
one question. There were six of you. So were you kind of stepping over each other's toes? Because six is quite a large number for an entrepreneur venture. Although I have seen another one where you had seven IIT Delhi alumni and five IIT Delhi professors. But jokes apart, six is a large number. How did that work out?
So what we did was we decided that things could get a little tough, and in the beginning. So we just went. Two people stayed in Delhi, two people went to Calcutta, and two people went to Bombay.
Wow.
And we said, let's start the we had to find a way to make money, and only then could we develop our own computer. So we said, we know the calculator business. Let's start trading in calculators, make some money, and then get into computers. So I actually spent 6 months I went to Calcutta in October, and we made the money by December. We got some R&D people out of DCM. We started developing a computer. I moved back to Delhi in March, 6 months later. And Shiv Nadar and I moved into the computer area. And the other four, then one person from Bombay went to Madras. We opened Madras. And we had 4 regions. 4 people were selling calculators and giving us the cash flow, and we were developing computers. And of course, we found out then that the government had restricted computer licenses to state and public sector only. And so, we were ready to make a computer. We'd even designed it, but, so we finally did what is called a joint sector with the UP Electronics Corporation.
Love it, love it, love it.
Yeah, and that's, and the joint sector was basically, how do I put it? It was 25% promoters, 26% UP Electronics, and 49% was public. But our total equity was 20 lakhs. And so going public for 9.8 lakhs, the cost of going public was more than that. So ultimately, indirectly, we controlled 74% of HCL, Hindustan Computers Limited.
And
That's how it started.
and we talk about nimbleness and innovation. I love it. You looked at your core strength and you looked at what the market dynamics were, and that was the right strategy. So tell me, in DCM you had made 70 lakhs out of 1 point some crores. So what was your revenue? Do you recall in the first year of your business? Any chance, if you recall?
In HCL?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can tell you pretty much. If you multiply 25,000 by 33, so a little over 8.5 lakhs.
Wow. Fabulous.
So we sold 33 machines, and the average price was some 25,000. And so, whatever it comes to, let me see, 4 times, divided by 4.
Love it, love it.
Divided by 4, a little over 8 lakhs.
I just love it. And where is the company today? 50 billion US market cap. So how was the journey? Was it all hunky dory? Was it like you had your कैसे कहते हैं ना कि सारे हाथ घी शक्कर में थे या डॉलर फ्लोट कर रहे थे? What was happening?
No. It was, we made a lot of mistakes, and in fact, India was licensed Raj in those days. I
Yes.
think people don't remember how working in those days was, but I'll give you an example. When we got into our 8-bit commercial machine, the way we worked it was you gave us 30% advance with the order, and we took 30% because that covered our bill of materials. There was nice margin in hardware in those days. And then when the machine was ready, you were supposed to come to the factory, look at the machine, give us a check for the balance 70%, and we'd pack it and ship it to you and then install it at your premises. So the first machine that was ready was for a trademark type attorney in Delhi called Remfrey and Son. And Jyoti Sagar was the gentleman from there, who's still a good friend. So he'd come over to the factory, looked at the machine, gave us the check, and we were actually packing the machine. Someone, I forget who, said, "Have you paid excise?" We were naive enough to say, "What is this excise?" So we were told that that's a production tax in India, that when you produce anything, you've got to give government a tax to produce, to have the right to produce. So we called the excise inspector and told him, "Tell us how much excise we have to pay." Now, there are 2 or 3 ways of doing it. One is it's ad valorem, which is a percentage of your invoice, or if transformers, the excise is 4 annas per kilo by weight, right? So we didn't know which one to pay. So we asked him to have a look, and he went through the whole manual. There was no entry for a microprocessor, mini computer, microcomputer. There was no category. So we said, "Then what do we do?" So he said, what you do is you write a letter to your administrative ministry. They will write a letter to the finance ministry, and then the finance ministry will issue a notification, and that's the basis on which you pay. So we looked at the guy and said, you mad? It'll take 4 or 5 months, 2 ministries. We don't have that kind of time. So he said, no, no, this is revenue generating for the government. They do it in one day. So sure enough, Department of Electronics had just been started because electronics was supposed to be the future. So we took an appointment. I still remember it was a Saturday. We used to work half-day Saturdays at that time. I don't know if people remember those days, but
Yes, I
so
remember.
we went and gave them a presentation, and we told them, please write to the Ministry of Finance. So we were told that the microprocessor policy has still not been decided. We expected to take 4 years. So come back 4 years later, and then we'll write the letter to the ministry. So, it's very depressing. You spent all this money, you've taken advance from customers. What do you do? So all of us decided, let's take the book back home and have a look at it. Maybe we'll find something. Now, India also, import substitution was a big thing in India because the government wanted to save foreign exchange. So anytime you imported something, they wanted someone to make it in India. And so they put in. And we used to import electromechanical accounting invoicing machines from Robotron in East Germany. And there was a photograph, there was a table, there was a keyboard, there was a printer. And, so we called the excise guy on Monday and said, look at this photograph in your manual. And he's looked at it and said, look at our machine. He said, it looks exactly the same. So for 4 years, we cleared our computers as accounting invoicing machines. We even sold one to the Department of Electronics.
Lovely,
Right?
lovely.
That's how we had to work in those days.
So you were also the first one to head towards the US and, kind of appreciate the advantages of labor arbitrage, or for that matter, the competitiveness of India in times when there was nothing like software or services export and all that kind of thing. So how was the journey in the US?
So let me correct that. We weren't the first. FC Kohli and TCS were really the first people who
Yes,
went in.
yes, 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 yeah. I remember
Okay.
that now. But I,
So,
I what I don't mean is that whether first or not, but you were one of those pioneers.
yes. So we actually went to the US to sell our hardware. So a little background on that. When Rajiv Gandhi came in as the prime minister, the law changed and, source codes were allowed to be imported with no duty. And Unix source codes were public domain. So we imported Unix source code and Unix was a scientific operating system. We actually ported it onto the microprocessors that were available, added a file system very similar to what PDP-11 had, which I think is still a great file system or was. Added a spooler, added a number of things, added compilers and stuff like databases. That's what we used to sell in India. And because India was aligned with the Eastern Bloc, with Russia, so to say, at that time, the latest chips would not be cleared. So, for example, when the 68030 came out, it wasn't cleared for India. But a lot of our customers read those magazines, and everyone wanted that performance on our computers. So we were forced to move into multi CPU, so to try and give that kind of performance. And we had ported Unix to the user. It looked like a single CPU, but I had a multiprocessor machine inside it, right? So the user didn't have to change the way his Unix commands were by and large. At one of the Computer Society of India conferences, in the meanwhile, AT&T had bought Unix. So one of the AT&T VPs was there, and he was really impressed by what we had done. And so after talking to him, we got McKinsey to do a study for us. And basically, they told us that the multiprocessor machines were from Pyramid and MIPS and were at $1 million, whereas our machine would have gone at about $100,000, roughly at that time. So we decided to go to the US and actually manufacture and sell our multiprocessor Unix machines.
Wow.
That's why we went to the US. Right. How we switched to, I'll give you that story too. So when you go to the US, so you got to get UL, certification. You want the enabling technologies to get ported onto your machine. So we worked with Sybase, we worked with Informix, we worked with Unify, We worked with Micro Focus for the COBOL compiler, etc., etc. And the way it works is you have to pay people to port. Now, in our case, the port wasn't that simple because I had to put multiprocessor extensions onto their software and then port it onto my machine. So the deal we had with people was that what we will do is I'll give you my engineers free, but I'm not going to pay for the port, and the IP is yours, but it'll get working on my machine. So we were in this process. In the meanwhile, we picked up a big order from a company called Fortune, who wanted our system to under their brand for $50 million OEM order. What happened was that Fortune got bought by a company called SCI in Texas. And SCI's policy was Intel only, not Motorola. And ours was a Motorola CPU. So, number one, this happened. Number two, the founder who had gone, Yogesh Vedya, who had gone to the US, had to have a bypass. Now, in those days, bypasses weren't that common. And he basically said he'll be back at work in 10 days and all. We thought in India he was pushing himself. So, you had this problem with the order being cancelled. We had no idea that I could have gone legal and made a lot of money because you don't have that mindset in India. You get that once you come to the US. So I was sent basically to shut down the US operations quietly because we'd taken a lot of mileage in India saying brain drain, HCL computers go to America and all that stuff. So when I came here, I looked at my expenses and I had these software engineers who I was paying for, but I wasn't going to use what they were doing. So I called all the companies and said, I'm pulling them off. All of them said, we want these multiprocessor extensions, we'll pay you $45 an hour at that time.
$45 an hour?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because they were doing real R&D work, right? And so, I suddenly had a cash flow, a positive cash flow. And, so I didn't tell India. For 2 years, we did exactly that. I had a $3 million loss getting to that point because we spent a lot of money. And when India ran into a recession in 91, if you remember, in that period, 90, there was a recession.
Yes.
I actually was able to send them money from the US because I had accumulated a lot of money. That's when people started asking, what are you doing? And that's when I told them, hey, I'm in IT services. I'm no longer in hardware. That's how we got it.
Wow.
That's how HCL Tech, what you call HCL Technologies today, that's how it started. It was called HCL America at that time.
So, and then you see, you were what I would call as a serial entrepreneur, because in way back when you started, I think this concept of serial entrepreneur was not there. In fact, startups were never heard of. It was called, you're doing your own business. And so from there, you went on to another, that company merged into Headstrong, and then Headstrong merged into Genpact. What is all this? How did that come about? And how did you kind of end up becoming a serial entrepreneur?
So I thought I spent 23 years in HCL. So first thing I've got to mention is that the 6 founders in HCL stayed together for 19 years.
Wow.
Which I think is some kind of a record. Right.
Must be, yes.
Of course, then they all decided to spin out. I decided to retire after 23 years. I was turning 50 or getting close to 50. Internet was coming out. I thought I'll fool around on the internet. It's a new technology. I thought I was excited. I was 25, 26 when microprocessors came. I was 49 odd when the internet came. I said, wow, who has the opportunity of 2 major technology things happening in their lifetime? So, let me fool around with it rather than work in a big company kind of thing. So I made the classic mistake of not planning my retirement. So I got thrown out of the house in 10 days. And my wife's exact words were, the words were basically, we've been married for 27 years. I married you for good or bad, but I didn't marry you for lunch. So, I'll pay for a business center, you go work from a business center kind of thing. So that's how I ended up, starting another company. It basically was a little more involved than that. When I was leaving HCL, I was obviously working through my agreement to exit. The lawyer I had in Delhi, his tennis partner, was working with Goldman to get them to invest in the IT services space in India. And they were keen to do it, but they wanted someone who could help them do industrial due diligence. And so I was asked, and I said, when I leave HCL, yeah, I'm available. And so I worked as a consultant with Goldman for a while, evaluating companies and stuff. In the meanwhile, some old HCL guys had left and started a company called Scansoft in the DC area. And they kept telling me, come and become the chairman and all that. And I figured that they didn't need another head. They needed money. They were smart enough people as they are. And one of them runs a multi-billion-dollar public company on New York Stock Exchange right now. Clearwater Analytics, if anyone wants to look at it. So what? So I told them, look, you don't need. So when Goldman came, after 3 months, I told Goldman, look, they wanted a squeaky clean company. Now in India, we had a myriad of laws that made it very difficult for you to be squeaky clean in Goldman sense. So in the sense that if you had a foreign bill from an overseas customer, that was 181 days old and you didn't go legal, you were in contravention of FERA in those days, right? So I told them, if you want a squeaky clean company, why don't you start a company and we'll keep it squeaky clean. And so they said, yeah, it's a good idea. Why don't you do that? So I called these people in DC and said, hey, Goldman will put in some money. Why don't you give me a business plan? And so, when you hear the word Goldman, the business plan got bigger and bigger. They pulled a number of other friends in, and ultimately they wanted someone to sort of run it for them. And so that's how I got pulled into this company called TechSpan. We started, we signed the deal end of October 98 with Goldman. We started the company technically on 1st January 99. Had a plan, but that was when the bubble was there. So immediately you got pulled into e-commerce. And so we decided, why fight the market? Just go with it. And so we switched completely. In fact, in June 99 was our first $1 million month. We did $1 million of sale in that month. We did 15.4 million in our first year. We were profitable. We were cash positive the last 2 months. And we did 67 million in calendar year 2000. The reason we survived was we were getting some great valuations, but we were being discounted for making a profit. I don't remember how many people remember those days, but everyone felt you're making a profit means you're not investing enough in the future. So we didn't go public because we thought that was too counterintuitive about it. And I just saw another one of my partners from TechSpan, Nikki Mehra. He's also on the call somewhere. But yeah, that's what we did. And then, of course, the bubble burst. And so things started going downhill. And so from 67 million, we made 4 million profit. We came down to about 30 million. And at that point, we decided in that business, if you're standing still, you're really slipping down the hill slowly. And if you keep slipping down at some stage, your momentum of slipping down will be so fast, it'll be difficult to recover. So we thought we have to put some strategy in place. And so we did something called asset light. Now, what asset light meant was, and we decided to focus on one segment and say that let's not just do IT services because lots of people do that. Let's actually do domain-based consulting. Try and talk to the business guy, understand the business problem, and then leverage technology to provide the solution. That was the model that we thought we'd follow. And we decided to go with capital markets or investment banking. And so in New York, what we did was we'd go to all these bars, we'd meet people everyone had laid off people after the bubble. And so I'll just give you an example. Let's say Goldman wanted someone to do a project in municipal bonds, as an example. And someone would remember that there was that guy from Morgan Stanley Municipal Bonds who was laid off. So we tell him, come for the interview. If we get the business, I'll give you a job. If we don't, how does it matter? We all try it. And that was asset light because right. And so what happened is we got some jobs, we didn't get some others. But when the market came back, all these people got recruited, but they remembered that we had tried to help them. And so that's how the business picked up.
These are some wonderful thoughts, why? Because when I was with IBM, I still remember, the strategy used to be that instead of the CIO, you have to target the business leaders. We've got to talk the business language, and you're already doing that, a donkey number of years back. I suppose the question which comes to my mind is that at that particular point in time, there was imperfect markets. There were information asymmetries. Now, in today's times, when it's almost a word of instant information or instant gratification, what would your advice be to serial entrepreneurs, or what would be the traits for a serial entrepreneur?
I think the traits are all the same. Any entrepreneur, I mean, serial or not, that depends on people. Some people make money at a young age and then get into philanthropy or do something like that. So different people have different motivations. But I would think I tell entrepreneurs a number of things. One is that you've got to have a passion for doing something that will change the world, kind of thing. That's the key. Without that, there's no sense in getting into it. You might as well work in a company and try and make a difference that way. That's number one. Number two, you've got to have a team that is good and works together, is cohesive, and everyone complements each other. And try and find people who are smarter than you. Now, I know that's difficult. You don't think there's anyone there, but they are there. And try and find them and then listen to them. I think that, and then of course, you've got to have the right idea in the right space, of large enough space, because whatever you may think you want to do, it's likely to change. And if you don't have a large market you're addressing, then you'll probably have to start from scratch again. So that's what happens.
Arjun, the question is that passion, yes, I couldn't agree more with you. The challenge is passion doesn't always pay the bills. So how do you find the right balance between paying your bills and also, in other words, surviving and also, following your passion?
So if passion doesn't pay the bills, then you've got an NGO. Okay, but I'm saying if you've got an idea that's going to change the world, right? That you think has a commercial viability, then that's what an entrepreneur does. But if you're doing, and I mean, passion also comes after all. Missionaries have a passion, right? They have a need for affiliation, as I call it, and so that passion is also a passion, and it does do some wonderful things. And so it's a question of what your passion is. And my reason for saying that is, if you are not passionate about what you do, you're not going to be happy in life. You're not going to do what you really want to do. You'll always have a regret, that I should have done this or I should have done that. And the older you get, the more difficult it is to come out of. You have commitment, you have family, all that stuff. So it's important to at least, and most people don't even know what their passion is and go through life trying to find it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you think you know what it is, then at least give it a shot. That's how I look.
So here again a question: when we look at today what is happening in India or globally in the startup ecosystem, when everybody wants to be a startup, and being a unicorn is the first measure of success. But what about governance? What are your observations in regard to the rising number of unicorns, and is governance, keeping pace with the sky high valuations?
So let me defend it to some extent. I think companies should be transparent and they should have strong governance. But when you grow really fast, a lot of times the processes lag the growth. And if you try and slow yourself to put the process in place, there's a very good chance you might lose the company, because the people want to see growth. They're there because of the excitement of growth. So what we had to do in HCL, and we went through this, we were growing at doubling our revenue every year. And, our processes weren't keeping pace because you were so busy in transactions to manage your revenue that you let your processes slip, saying, hey, we'll look at it when we get time. Then we decided one year, I think when we were 14 crores or something in revenue, we decided that, look, we got to put our processes in place. And so we actually slowed our revenue down and decided we nearly lost the company that year. We grew from 14 to 18, but we had a lot of key people leave us because the excitement wasn't there anymore. So we basically said, forget it. let's just keep growing. We'll find a way of putting the back end in place. And it took us time. We used to sell.
You see,
Yeah.
I agree with you on, the passion side and, get of growth and all that. But you see, also we've got to remember that the times you were there and today's times, the laws are very different. A director's liability today is quite onerous. And at the same time, you see, we have even situations where the CEO of a national stock exchange, depends on gurus for deciding what to do. So where do you strike the right balance between growth? Because I mean, she's also done some fabulous work at NSE, but where do you get the right balance between the two?
So let me put it this way. Today, you've also got technology available that allows you to do things that we couldn't do many years ago,
Mm.
quicker, right? So as I said, it's a judgment. I mean, obviously, today, if when I run a company like, I'm on the board of some company, we make sure that the first thing the board looks at is a compliance certification from people in the company that, yeah, am I compliant on all these things that would have a problem, right? We never really looked at that earlier. So it's really a question of how things evolve and how you look at it. But you really cannot, I don't know how to describe it. So a lot of things that we put in HCL that really helped us get to what HCL is today is when we did the joint venture with HP. Again, it took us a couple of years to change the culture, get people to accept certain things because, we had our own culture. HCL had its own culture. HP had its own culture. And trying to merge the two caused a lot of problems initially. But we did learn a lot of things from them. We did learn, there was one QA engineer who actually stopped our production for 6 weeks because there was some lead content in the water that was being used to wash the PCB or whatever. And we talked to the CEO at HP, and he said there's nothing he can do. He cannot tell that QA guy.
Absolutely
So,
right. You see, the balance between the nimbleness of a startup or an entrepreneur mindset and the process maturity of a large organization, the blend of the two is exactly what gets the right. I couldn't agree more with you on that. On another tack, you see, let's move across from the hurly-burly business of computers and businesses and all that, and let's look at Spick Mckay. That is culture. How what made you? I'm kind of just wondering what made you, be a founding member for Speak Mckay.
okay. So, first thing is the guy who really is the kind of Spick Mckay. If I define one person, it's Kiran Seth, Dr. Kiran Seth, who's now, I think he would have retired as a professor from IIT Delhi. He's right now cycling from the north to
Yes,
Khanna,
yes.
right? Kiran is a friend and a batchmate from IIT Kharagpur. So, number one. And really, what happened was he'd come back from Columbia, and one winter afternoon, we all got together. I was staying with my mom on her Maulana Azad Medical College campus house. She was a doctor. And we were sitting out in the lawn in front and having beer. The other two, Kiran, me, and Mahinda Malu, who was with him at, now late Mahinda Malu, who was with him at Columbia, who was the managing director of Haryana Breweries. So Rosie Pelican beer, if you remember. So he'd got a case of Rosie Pelican beer. And then Bobby Barwa, again, late Bobby Barwa, who was president of Hindu College. So we were sitting there, and there used to be a debate topic in our time. There were a number of debate topics, but one was, something about Western pop culture is overtaking Indian culture or some such kind of, and that used to be debated. And so somehow we got into that discussion and said that, we are losing Indian culture because kids have no idea about it. They're much more involved in, say, Western music and stuff like that. So how do we just get them to get a feel of what it is? So we decided that we were going to start a society or a society basically that would do this, and we couldn't think of a name. So the objective of the society became the name. So SPIC-McKay stands for Society for the Promotion of Indian Classical Music and Culture Amongst Youth. That got abbreviated to SPIC-McKay. I got some Oxford sheets and we hand wrote it in 4 or 5 pages and all of us signed it. And that's how SPIC-McKay started. Now, what happened was initially you needed to give publicity. So Kiran came to me and said he wanted some help on that. Now, HCL, we had a massive advertising budget. Every first Monday of every month, in every major newspaper in the country, we used to have a full page ad. And so the advertising agency makes some 17.5%, whatever they make on these ads. I talked to them and said, I want a 1 column centimeter ad in the third page of Hindustan Times and Times of India to advertise this SPIC-McKay type stuff. So, we'd have Debu Chowdhury performing on this date at Lady Shri Ram College, ad courtesy Hindustan Computers Limited. That's how it used to go out. Now, I'll give you a story on that, which is quite interesting. So we had started something in Singapore in 1980 when we were 3 crore company. And the whole idea was we got pioneer status. We were the first computer manufacturer to go to Singapore. But the whole idea was not to sell hardware, but to sell solutions. And what we would do was do the system study, send the spec to, we set up something in Madras because there were 3 flights a week between Singapore and Madras. And then we had what we called SED, Software Export Division there, that would write the program, put it on a floppy and send it back by air to Singapore, and then they would implement it there. And if they had a problem, it would go up and down, whatever. The problem was software was not an industry. It was a trade. So that particular unit came under the Shops and Establishments Act, not under the Companies Act. And so we had to maintain these 12, 13, whatever number of registers. And it was a mess because we just weren't used to it. And that wasn't what we wanted to do. So Shiv said that he knew the Tamil Nadu government folks, that he would get it converted to an industry. And this went on for about 3, 4, 5, 6 months. One day he comes to me in Delhi and he says, what's this SPIC-McKay? So I thought, oh, maybe you chori pakdi gayi kind of thing, that little thing I'm doing with the advertising agency. So I asked him why. He said, because we've just got software cleared as an industry. I said, how did that happen? He said these IAS type people and all who come from Tamil Nadu, they saw our ad saying courtesy Hindustan Computers Limited. They said if the company can do that, then it has a soul, so we'll take your word for it. And so that
So
software
Arjun,
became an industry.
so Arjun, I don't drink beer. I drink wine. But I'm quite happy to, sit down with you, sip a bottle of beer, and find some debating topic, and maybe you'll get interested in the company, and maybe after a couple of years it'll have, 100,000 people or a couple of billions and all that. But jokes apart, tell me about NIIT. How
Okay,
did
that's
you kind
also,
of, what is your role in NIIT?
okay, so that's also a story. Let me. So when we were in the initial years, there were 3 people in the computer business. DCM decided to get into it after we had left. There was ORG, which is part of
Yeah.
Saroagi Group out
Yes.
of Baroda, out of Ahmedabad, Baroda, that area. And there was HCL. And each of us was selling 200 in that range computers every year, right? So Rajinder Pawar, Rajiv Pawar, who is the chairman of NIT now, he was our corporate planning manager. He's an
He
IIT
was in
Delhi.
HCL.
He was in DCM. Actually, I was 9th batch. Shiv was 7th batch management training in DCM. I was 9th batch. Pawar was 12th batch. So we'd got Pawar in. He was our corporate planning manager. And he presented I call it a white paper, saying how we can go from 200 computers a year to 1,000 computers a year, right? And so we had, you make these plans. And so as part of the plan, one of the things was, what are the problems? Problems of where was I going to get 1,000 voltage stabilizers? Where was I going to get 1,000 air conditioners? Those were problems in India in those days. And one problem was, where was I going to get 1,000 programmers to run those computers, right? Because India people would give you a kind of a certificate with you didn't really know anything. So he put up a proposal that why don't we do proper training not just give a certificate, but actually impart real training, skill people so that they can use these computers. Otherwise, you can't sell 1,000 computers. And so we felt that was made sense. So what we did was we said we'll fund it, the HCL founders. We'll put in 80% and leave 20% for you and your management team as equity. And that's how NIT got started.
Oh, wow. So you see, was the secret of success being that you got to be employed with HCL in those days? Because I'm just seeing a post by one of my batchmates, Shashi Chawla. She used to be called as Shashi Nanda in IIT Delhi, which you must be knowing. She was with the Harvard Museum and she lives in Boston. And she is writing over here that yes, she also worked with HCL, the company had a flair that it was very popular among the IIT and IIMs. It was a very hip kind of a company. But there are so many questions, but in the interest of time, I have to cut end the session and I will get you back again because there are stories and stories. And my last question of the day is that work-life balance and startup. Is
Yeah,
there
I,
work-life
I'm the wrong guy. I haven't found it. I don't think it exists. I've been looking for it for a long time. Uh, you know, it's I ultimately it you'll never find it. Let me put it this way: you just have to get to a point where you and your spouse and your kids, I guess, have to accept what it is. Different people have different ways of setting it together. I am the wrong guy to ask because I get into trouble in that area all the time. I still get into trouble, so I'm the wrong person.
But it's so fascinating, because just a couple of days back, I was having a chat with Kiran Bedi.
Mhm.
And I asked her the same question. I said, what about you had so many transfers across different parts of India. How did you manage work-life balance? And she said, I had no life. It was all work, 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 kind of a thing. So I think the personality traits of people who are so passionate about doing whatever they want to do is absolutely fabulous. Look, I've got tons of other questions and tons of other things to ask, and I will be getting you back, but it has been absolutely lovely and I thoroughly
Uh,
enjoyed the journey and enjoyed the discussion. And it is, you see, the simpleness, despite all what you have achieved, is what is so beautiful about it. So, ladies and gentlemen, please give a big round of applause to Arjun, and we look forward to having you across again and getting you more involved and getting some insights into how this brain worked. Hmm?
yeah, well, when you talk about simplicity, I just have to say one thing. One of my biggest assets is my friends, and I made my friends in school and college, and I don't want to change because I want to be exactly the same way with them. And that's the biggest motivation that, hey, I don't want them to feel I've changed because I want that friendship to be exactly the way it was as it's been over all these years. And so that's the important motivation for, hey, just being the same.
And that's what I said. You see, even in when it comes to the Pan IT and how Pan IT kind of got formed in the US and all that, there's so much stuff that I want to talk about it. I'll get you back again. Once
Okay.
again,
Thank you.
lovely, lovely, and I hope
Thank you.
you have the evening without any kind of power, issues. But
Yep.
great,
We're doing fine right now. Thanks a lot.
great,
Okay. Okay.
lovely.
Thank you.
So I want to move across now to the next session, which is with this young ladies. And to kickstart, and I have to make a call. You see, who's the older of the two? I have no idea, honestly. But just that because one person is a professor and has done PhD, so therefore let me kickstart with Arpita, and I'm sure the the big leader that Aparna is, she will be brimming with ideas. So let's kickstart with Arpita. Arpita, are you there?
Yes, sir. Hello. Yes, sir. I'm here and I'm enjoying the discussion and happy to be here. And thanks, you invited me. And heard the journey of Malhotra sir, and it is really wonderful to have the story.
So
Yes, sir.
wonderful to have you over here, Arpita, and you are at the moment with IIM Sirmaur. You look after environmental management. There is a center also. I would like to understand how did you get into this, or do you have anything that you want to show to us on what your journey has been? Because when I think about what is one of the biggest challenges which is coming through is that how do we balance growth with sustainability with inclusion? Hmm. So these are some of the fundamentals. These are some of the hot themes of the today. When we look at the glaciers melting in India, or the floods in Germany, or for that matter, fires in San Francisco, we know that climate change is on us. But at the same time, we've got lots of people who don't even have enough money to eat and live their life. So where do you get the balance between growth and sustainability, and what about inclusion? But also, I'm also keen to understand what your journey is. So I look forward to hearing more from you, as well as what you are doing, why sustainability is important, and anything else. Over to you, Arpita.
Yes, sir. Thanks for the invitation on this seminar. And yes, I started my journey from in environmental background from my MTech days. So I had MTech in environment from NIT Durgapur, and I was really passionate about this environment. So now thing is, yes, you are saying that climate change is happening, and yes, Paris agreement we had, now COP26 we had also, that is also on us, that India is the major stakeholder there, because India has the largest means almost 1/6 population of the globe in India, means shelter of 1/6 population is India. So now, yes, India is also the major stakeholders. Now, thing is, yes, for industrialization, we need to balance both. And society, without society, without environmental raw materials, we cannot uh, make the economic profit. So only from society we are taking the human resource, and also your customers also from society, so you need to do something for society also. And also the thing is, yes, your raw materials, of course, it is coming from environment, it directly or indirectly, whatever, however, in its form. Now it is also, so society and environment we cannot live. So three nested model we have, the uh, three nested sustainability model we have, and it says that yes, environment is the first nest of this all society, and then only economy comes. Now for to sustain, of course, economic profit is of major concern about of us, but to sustain the business for a long term, it's really necessary to see whether my business is not affecting the environment. If affecting, how is the mitigation technology techniques I am adapting to this, because I the farm needs to sustain for a long time. And if the surrounding environment, then the raw materials getting depleted regularly, because it is also a natural resource coming from. So now also it is now, if now society and your customers, employees, all are now concerned about the sustainability or pollution issues. Now
But
it is
let me
also,
ask you another question, Arpita. You
yes,
talked about the sustainability model, but there is also the Maslow's need hierarchy model.
yes, sir.
So, you got to, well, like I said, if you're at the bottom end of the Maslow's need hierarchy model, where is the question of sustainability? It's the question of tomorrow, survival. And this is where I'm talking about at the bottom of the pyramid. But growth is essential for, everything along all different levels of population. But let me kind of get the debate between both you and Aparna. So let me oscillate across to Aparna. Aparna, you did your MBA from IIT Delhi in 2006. You are a banker, you are with a global group, NatWest Group. So, where did inclusion come in? Where did sustainability come in?
Okay, thanks, Pradeep. First of all, before even I answer that, I must say session with Mr. Arjun Malhotra was amazing, amazing. It made my evening and filled a lot of energy and ideas. So thank you for organizing. Now come to today's world, right? Inclusion is no longer a tick in the box. It's a business imperative. If you talk about any company, right, the companies which are more inclusive have better returns, better return on equity, better less non-performing assets, more innovative, satisfied customers, satisfied employees. So inclusion is the only way we can survive in this world when we are going through the great resignation and other things. Inclusion is the differentiating factor, and that's the reason almost all the companies are going after. And when I'm talking about inclusion, I'm not just talking about the gender. We're talking about inclusion from all the perspective: your gender, your nationality, your experience, your ethnicity, your everything. People with different needs. And when the inclusive team comes together with the passion, and that's where the miracle happens.
No, but
And that's
I understand this, but my question is that how did you become focused onto inclusion? Was it that did you see challenges as you went through your life, or what was the driver for that?
so it's a combination of both heart and brain, right? So obviously, as I was climbing up my corporate ladder, I was seeing less and less female, right? I was seeing that my friends are just taking other responsibility and not so much going into that, and that was creating a pain, right? When you start your career, it's around 50 to 53% of women, but as you move up the corporate journey, you see less of that. And as we all know, that around 15 to 20% startups are founded by women. Why not 50%? Why not more, right? That and now as a banker, right? I think inclusion is the best investment we can make. It's the best. I don't know of any other investment which can give us a better return than this. The more we focus on inclusion, the more it's better returns from all the sides.
So
That's
let me go across to
if I
Arpita.
can add just one
Yeah,
line,
sure.
right? If we have a gender parity in India, billions and billions of dollars would be added to our economy, and that's the only way India can become a developed nation. That's the only and only way.
Oh, I love it, love it. Can I get 0.0001% of that additional revenue being generated? Well, jokes apart, let me go across to Arpita. Arpita, I will come back to the sustainability part of the discussion, but I also wanted to pick up on inclusion. As a female, did you have a mentor when you were at IIT Delhi or in your professional career?
Yes, I am in support with Aparna's views. Yes, women parity, women gender equality is majorly needed required to achieve sustainability, because if half of the worlds we consider that is male and another half is female, so if another half is at home only to take care of the household work or kids, then how the world will progress? with only the with आधा population से कैसे होगा काम? ठीक है. Now thing is, yes, of course, and women are nowadays somehow they are progressing in a lot many areas, but still now rural areas needs require more development, and also they do not have awareness about nutrition, about the child care, and then of course they do not have the independent economies, all these things. Now, yes, sir, my mentor was also another woman professor at IIT Delhi. So I did my PhD from Professor Manisha Ghosh with another co-guide, Professor T.S.C. Krishnan, but my main guide was women faculty, and also my MTech project supervisor, she was also another woman, Professor Papita Dash. So
So, but did you have any challenges that which you found that because you were a woman, you found it difficult to get going in your life at IIT Delhi. I don't know the institution, but in the study phase or in your work life.
No, at during education, it was not difficult because I do not have before marriage, women do not have the major responsibility. But after kids, yes, there is some difficulty, but yes, we need to manage, because if my maid that full time means here another point is point I used to say, that if you empower an woman, then behind that another two women is also getting employed. Maybe it is labor class, maybe they are from rural background, some uneducated background, but yes, so you are not employing one woman, you are actually employing three women. So yes, if I go I have two twins daughters, which age is only 2 years. So yes, when I go home, so there is another two women who is taking care of my household work and kids. So yes, if
Very, very
they
good. I actually think
yes,
very
if they
good
are
thinking.
not here, so then I cannot. So that's the only difficulty. If they become irregular, then yes, I am in stuck. But uh, uh, this is my yes,
Yeah,
please.
understand. No, I think it's a very lovely thoughts where the multiplying impact of inclusion also come into play. Now let me go across to Aparna. Aparna, we talked about inclusion. What about sustainability? What got you interested into sustainability and what are you doing in sustainability?
Okay, so as a banker or as a human being, right, the biggest risk of our lifetime is a climate risk. Climate risk matters to me because it impacts my family, it impacts my business, it impacts my productivity, it impacts my future generation, it impacts everything. And that's the reason we want to do something about it. And climate is one of the most complex problems we are talking about. It's a multifaceted problem which cannot be solved by one person, one government, or one organization. But if we all understand the impact it is making, right? And we all go through, the pandemic has taught us how dangerous it could be when you see your family member going through that pain, right? And when you see, because it is happening because we're losing biodiversity, our greatest treasure, right? We're talking about unicorns and everything, but on the other side we're losing our biodiversity right? That's a time when you feel, yes, this is a time when we need to join hands. We have organizations need to be sustainable profit, and that's what the focus is.
I couldn't agree more with you. But then how do you balance growth with sustainability?
I think I think gone are those days, right? When people used to be just one focus at money, 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 right? It's a different world. It has to be sustainable growth is the mantra. If you want as a right, if I talk about as an employer, if I talk about purpose, that's where my team would like to work today. If you're talking about millennium, no longer that once right. It profit has to have a multiple dimension. The impact you're making on society, the impact you're making on community. What future are you creating?
So let me
And
ask you another question. Let's say that you are traveling from Delhi to maybe what? Varanasi. And you have to stay in a hotel. You get a five-star hotel at say 100 rupees hypothetically a night. And you get an eco-friendly hotel which is at 150 rupees a night. Which one would you prefer to go and live in?
so I'll give a real example, Pradeep. One of the startup I'm mentoring, EcoPlore, right? They are in the green travel, green hotels. So they actually go and explore where there's sustainable living hotels and the little bit more expensive as you talk. And people are going and using those.
No, but I'm asking you the question. What is your marginal utility value? How much would you be prepared to pay more for being eco-friendly? Or
So I'll go for eco-friendly, definitely, right? As a climate coin, I would go, but we have to get more and more people. It's not right. And I understand what you're saying. How sustainable are green ventures? That's one thing which we all are trying to deal, right? You and I are trying to work upon. How sustainable are green ventures? How do we deal with greenwashing? Because now everybody is saying we are green, green, green. How green are they? Right.
Interesting, very interesting. Now, moving on to Arpita. Arpita, is there something that you would like to show us? Do you have a PowerPoint or something like that which you'd like to share with us?
Uh, no, sir. I am enjoying the discussion and wish to stay in this
So,
discussion.
for you, my question is that, Sirmaur, you are operating very much in a different kind of a terrain. It is, among mountains, it is among the rural population. How do you get people to understand, what is sustainability, or for that matter, different aspects of inclusion? How do you get that into play?
So we started in 2019. The Center for Sustainability and Environmental Management was established with the vision of the founding director, Professor Romitra. And yes, we had the institute has adopted 5 villages from under UBA, Unnat Bharat Abhijan. That is also another flagship program under IIT Delhi, and it is means regulated by Ministry of Environment. Sorry, Ministry of Education (MOE). Before it was MHRT. So we adopted 5 villages at Sirmaur near to our institute. And there our so Unnat Bharat Abhijan was started from IIT Delhi, from CRDT departments, Center for Rural Development, and now its vision is also for the basic amenities, women startup groups, then uh, waste management, water irrigation issues, all this. So now, so we did some basic survey, baseline survey to that villages, and now finally we got some results that yes, organic farming is not still not not attracted to the male farmers rather than female farmers. So female farmers are more worried about their family health rather than their the male farmers. Male farmers is only for wish to run their family, so they need the profit or money, and they have the insecurity to whether the market is there or not. So and many other things. So waste management issues, because that is this area is not under the municipality, so the our rural villages are not as well. So waste management, so how they are, so we are now so change will not come in a day, of course. So we started our then awareness program also. So we do awareness program in this waste management issues, then dry waste and wet waste. So if the circular material management we can implement, then everything has the value actually.
So
Nothing is
tell
waste.
me, I love this concept of the engagement which is having, but have you noticed any difference which has come through because the program was started quite a few years back?
So no, we are doing the awareness program, and yes, people are coming. So people are also approaching us how to do it. So yes, their mindset is changing slowly, but we need time, because this is also rural India we are saying. And now their basic thing is farming, of course, and they do not wish to have the education as well, because their child education is also lacking. Their maximum child are do farming at their own land. So many issues are there, but yes, government has some attractive scheme for midday meal, or then the child education fees, all this. Then also we are also trying to make them understand that yes, if you are doing the making the dry waste segregated priorly, and then you can send it to different industries, so everything has the resale value. If it is going to plastic industry, so it is going to recycling industry, you will get the so long term profit is there actually. Effort is there and profit is also there. So yes, developed country do the means many places they implement the circular material management. that is comes from SDG 12. That's that responsible consumption and production we should have. And if it is not there, then of course responsible consumption means, again, you are cutting the, in business point of view, you are cutting the raw material cost.
So
So if it is,
I agree with you that you see conceptually the concepts of a circular economy, and I also agree with you that you see the concept of sustainability will vary from place to place, you know. Hmm. So some fabulous thoughts. Let me go across to Aparna. Aparna, you have won quite a few awards. What was the award, or where were you kind of, recently recognized? I seem to recall something happened in the last week of March. What exactly was that?
So Pradeep, I was recognized by NatWest Group as a Champions Award, NatWest Gender Champions Award, for making a significant contribution globally to be so that NatWest becomes a gender balanced. Because we have pledged that we'll be gender balanced by 2030, and to
So
do that, I've
that
run
is
numerous initiatives.
fabulous, and that congratulations for that. So how many employees does NatWest have? Roughly.
55,000.
And I presume it must be all over the world.
Yes, it was a global award. Yeah,
So
global recognition.
how does it feel to be recognized among so many different people in a global organization?
So I think I work to make a real impact. It's recognition makes feel good, but it's primarily when you see your work makes real impact, real business value, real sustainable. That what's give me the happiness.
Well, I am delighted with your recognition, and there's a big round of applause for the recognition, and hope both you and Arpita get many more such recognition. In the interest of time now, we are well into the closing stage, and I will ask both of you to make one last comment that you would like to make. Over to you, Arpita, first.
yes, sir. So I'll say yes, sustainability and CSR, both ESG nowadays, both are important because it's somehow in business point of view, it is a differentiation strategy. So if you're, it is making the brand image of your company as well, and it attracts the investors, customers, and employee retention as well. So that's all. So it is for a uh, to sustain your business, it's required for a long term.
That is
Yes.
such sweet thoughts, Arpita. I love them. Over to you, Aparna.
So I would simply say together we can make a better world for our future generation. Let's join hands for inclusion, sustainability, because it does matter. It does matter to all of us.
What beautiful words. And that reminds me of Earth Day, which is coming up on 23rd April, and the event which is being planned immediately before a global event. That's exactly what it is. So, folks, with this, please give a big round of applause to Arpita and Aparna, as well as to Arjun. We had absolutely a wonderful session today. Stay tuned. We will have even more interesting stories to come. In the next session on 23rd April, we will have the president of ASOCAM, who is also the founder and chairman of Renewable Energy, Sumant Sinha, and an IIT Delhi alumni. And we will have some lovely ladies. We will continue the discussion. A big round of applause, and also to mention on the session thereafter on 9th of May, we will have Pramath and other people talking about the Ashoka University story. And like that, there is a whole big interesting series coming up. This is Pradeep from Sydney signing off. Thank you very much, all of you, for taking the time out to attend. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much to the
Thank
lovely leaders
Thank you, Pradeep.
you.
for the wonderful thought sharing, and we look forward to, and it is a community that we are building at this particular point in time, so stay tuned.